Today I'm going to show you guys how to create this modern logo reveal inside Adobe Premiere Pro. And the great thing is that also Premiere Pro CS6 users can just follow along, so let's get started. What up guys, Jordy here for Cinecom.net and welcome again to a very exciting tutorial. This time we're going to create this modern logo animation, something similar that we did a couple of months back, but we had so much positive reactions on it that we just had to create another one, a new design and also new techniques. Now before we are going to start, I first want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Rocket Stock today, and they have actually launched a brand new pack called Interface, and I'm also very happy that I was able to test this pack out and it actually looks very gorgeous. It is a pack with more than 400 video elements that you can use for your next science fiction project. And I definitely want to make sure that you guys subscribe to the channel because next week we are going to make a video about how to track objects inside After Effects. We're going to feature this entire pack in that video and how to use these elements in your next film project. So that's going to be pretty cool. There are a bunch of things in here like display elements, overlay effects, etc. So make sure to check that out. Just follow the first link in the description below and that will bring you to this exact same page where you can read all about it. And definitely make sure to check out this awesome promo video. It is really cool. Alright, let's get started now with the tutorial. I've got a blank sequence right here and the first thing I want to do is create a background. And we can do that from the new item button down below here and just select color matte, press OK, select a white color, again press OK, and just give that any name, for example, backgrounds, and drag that solid or color matte into the timeline, like so. And then right here, what I have is a logo, it's a PNG file, and actually, I'm just going to string this a little bit bigger. This is a logo with a transparent background, and that is something important that you do need. But typically your logo is designed in Illustrator or perhaps Photoshop, so in there you can kind of disable that background, export it as a PSD or as a PNG file so that it is transparent. Alright, the next thing that I'm going to do is create a square that is going to pop open from the middle. And again, I'm going to click on that new item button down below here and select color matte, this time not the 1080-20 white, but 1080 white. And that way the dimensions are at a square. Press OK, and I'm going to select a color from my logo, which is always nice to have like the same colors. So I'm going to use the color picker down below here and just select the same red here as my camera, like so, and then just press OK and give that any name again, for example, square. Press OK and drag that into your timeline, like so. Now we could do the animation here on the motion from your effects controls panel, but actually the better way to do that is from your effects library and just search for transform. This is something that I've actually covered in a video that I've done before about the 5 essential effects that I believe any advanced editor should know about in Premiere, and this will actually allow us to create motion blur. So just drag that effect onto the square, and from here what I'm going to do is just animate the scale. You can let that start from 0, for example. Enable the keyframing for that, go a little bit forward in time, and just increase that scale to something like this here so that it pops open very nicely. And then we're going to put that back to 0 scale, so just make that 0 like that. And now we've got 3 keyframes and the animation should go to something like this. Now what we're going to do is kind of play around with these keyframes so that we have a nice looking animation, because this looks very robotic. Doesn't look good. So the first thing I want to do is actually just kind of move these keyframes a little bit closer to each other so that they kind of pop open a bit faster, like so. And what I'm going to do next is here on the middle keyframe, just right click on that and say Bezier. And that way we kind of have the animation go smoothly to that point and it goes out again smoothly. Let's just play that so you can kind of see what it does here. Looks pretty good. Now actually you can kind of fine tune this even more by opening up that scale property, and from here you can actually see the curve of what that animation is doing, and by selecting that keyframe you can kind of change that curve. So what I'm going to do here is pull this lever, and that way you can kind of see how this curve goes. In the beginning it will go pretty fast and then it will smoothly stop and go to that keyframe, and from there I'm going to pull that second lever here as well. It's going to start again smoothly and go faster and faster and faster. So let's have a look at this. This looks actually pretty nice. Alright, let's now add that rotation effect to it. This works kind of the same way. I'm going to create a keyframe for the rotation right here at 0. Just go to the ending position right here because there's no need for a middle keyframe, and just kind of let that rotate a couple of times. Like that. And we want to do something similar here. I'm going to right click on the first keyframe and actually now just say ease out. And that is because this is not a middle keyframe but a starting keyframe. And for starting keyframes you always want to select ease out, and for ending keyframes you always want to select ease in. So open up that rotation property and I'm going to pull that lever here as well. something like that. And let's have a look at this. Okay, perhaps this is going a bit too fast, so let me just change that last keyframe here. Perhaps a little less rotations, something like this. Let's just have a look at that. This looks better. I thought I needed more rotations, but apparently I don't. Let's look at that. This looks actually pretty nice. Perhaps pull that lever a bit down here as well, because the flatter this curve is, the less it will turn, and the more it will go up, the more it will turn. So that way you can kind of see here what it kind of does. And this is often something that you have to play and then tweak again, look at it, see how your animation goes. But I'm actually pretty satisfied with this result here. So let's go with this. Now, I was talking before that with this effect that we can actually enable motion blur, and that can be done from down below here. Instead of using composition's shutter angle, we're going to set one ourselves, and 180 degrees is a natural shutter angle, so let's set it on that. And let's play this now. This looks pretty nice. You can see it here at those corners where we have this nice motion blur. Looks way more natural, and we have a nice animation now as well too. Okay, so this is for the first square. The next thing what we're going to do is actually duplicate this layer, and we can do that from holding down the Alt key, drag that layer to a new channel like that. And I'm just going to offset this a couple of frames to the front like so, and we're also going to tweak those keyframes a bit more. Oh, by the way, you can offset this frame by just holding down your Alt key again and just pressing the arrow keys on your keyboard, and that way you can kind of nudge this clip one frame forward or backwards. Alright, to make sure that this square here is actually going to work as a gap within the first square, what I'm going to do is go back to the effects here and search for the track matte. This is, by the way, again, an effect that I've covered before in that 5 Essentials effect video. By the way, you can find a link to that video in the description below. And I'm going to drag this effect to the first square that we've created prior, and I'm going to scroll down here in my effects controls and locate that effect. It's right here, the track matte key, and our matte is in this case video channel number 4, which holds that duplicated square effect. And I'm going to say reverse, and that way now you can kind of see here that the second square is going to cut out from the first square. All right, I'm going to tweak the second square a little bit more, because let's have a look at this here. It can kind of come in a little bit later as well, so I'm just going to move up this keyframe of the scale a bit more like that. And perhaps I might also want to make sure that it's kind of starts a little bit more smoothly, so I'm going to right-click on that first keyframe of the scale and say ease out, so that we have kind of two different animations. I kind of pull this lever here, perhaps. Let's see how that looks. This looks pretty good. Perhaps move these a bit more apart. Again, something that you have to play with to kind of make sure that they are at the right position. Something like this here looks okay, and you also want to make sure that they kind of close sooner as the big square. Something like this looks okay. Perhaps one frame back like that, because I want to make sure that the camera is going to reveal itself when the square is covering that. So something like this looks actually pretty nice. So the big square is coming in, then we've got that smaller square, and we actually want to make that larger like so, so that it's cutting in here, as you can see. And this looks pretty nice. It's going a bit faster than the example that we've done here, but actually it's not that bad. Look at this. If you want to make it to go slower, then you can just kind of play around with these keyframes. You know what? I'll leave both of these examples in this project, which you can download for free, and then you can kind of play around with these and follow along with this tutorial too. And that way you have a fast and a slow version of these. All right, now that we have these squares out of the way, we're going to focus now on the logo itself. And to start with, I'm going to scale this down a little bit, like so. And also here, I'm going to drag that transform effect to it, which is right here on that logo. Like I said before, always work with that transform effect if you are going to do animations to get some natural motion blur in there. So when the square kind of covers the entire logo, we can trim it to our playheads like that, so that it only pops up when the square is covering that. And I'm going to add like a tiny bit of a scale to it, because this square is kind of pulling that logo from behind. So I'm going to start with a scale value of 70% somewhere. And when these squares here are at its maximum somewhere, I'm going to put this at 100%. Again, also here, right click on that last keyframe and say ease in. And that way the animation will slowly stop to that point. Something like this. And perhaps I want to pull this a bit more, so that definitely stops smoothly like that, and perhaps separate them a bit more so that the animation goes a little bit slower like that. This is actually looking pretty nice. And what I'm also going to do is add a tiny bit of rotation to it. Not too much like we did before, just a tiny bit. So create a keyframe for the rotation. This is going to be the last point already. So I'm going to move up this keyframe to that final position here. And then I'm going to create the first keyframe actually by offsetting that value like so. And let's just have a look at it. this looks actually pretty nice. And we can actually move this keyframe a bit further. It kind of has like an extra effect to it with this turn, something like this. Again, make sure that this keyframe here again is in. And let's play this now. This looks actually pretty nice. Perhaps I do want to bring this a little bit closer like that. All right, this looks good. And again, you can always go in here and tweak that curve a bit more if you want so. So if you only have like one color in your logo, then this might already be enough for your logo reveal. But if you have some accent into it, like we have with this camera inside this logo, you can actually key that out, and we can use that for an extra animation like we'll do right now. And we're going to create 2 layers of that logo. So I'm going to head over to the opacity here with this layer selected, and I'm actually going to create a mask with this here. And let's just zoom in a bit more on that logo, and just kind of create a mask that we are cutting out that camera in here. Like that. And I actually want to make sure that the feathering here is off of that mask. We don't want that. And of course, the first animation was to reveal that stuff around this camera. So I'm going to say invert that mask like so. And now I'm going to drag these 2 layers, these 2 squares, 1 channel higher like that, so that I can copy this layer here, this logo, by holding down the Alt key and dragging that to channel number 3, so that we have a copy of that. And the second logo here, with that selected, I'm going to de-invert that mask. And that way now we've got 1 layer here that has this camera icon into it, and the first layer only has that outer here, which is the speech bubble. Now, in changing the position here of these squares, we also kind of broke something here, and that was that track matte. You can see here that it's not working anymore, and that is because with that layer selected, I'm going to go back to track matte key, and you will see that actually now the matte layer has changed position. So you also want to change that back to now video channel number 5, which is this square right here. This looks pretty nice here, but the internal camera may only pop out as it's covered at this point. So I'm going to trim that second logo layer here to that point. Let's play it now. And that looks pretty nice. And to give it that extra touch also here, I'm going to add a little bit rotation to that logo. So I'm going to select that. And we've already copied that transform effect here by duplicating that layer. So we can actually just remove the keyframes of that rotation and kind of reset that value again and create new keyframes. So I'm going to rotate that camera a little bit like that. Create a keyframe forward to go a bit forward in time and bring that to 0. And also here, make sure that the last keyframe is eased in so that it kind of looks okay. Something like this, and perhaps I also want to make sure that the rotation is smoothing out here a bit more. So just kind of pull this lever so that it's turning fast because of that square that is going in there, and then it kind of just fades out like that. Something like this, perhaps offset these a bit more. Like that, and this looks actually pretty nice. So right here it is, guys, the faster version of this logo animation. Again, guys, if you'd like to download this project file, you can do so from the link down below. You can kind of practice here on the same logo as well. Make sure to thumbs up this video if you like so, and make sure to subscribe because we are putting out multiple videos a week. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, stay creative.